We are joined right now by our friend from the Post-Gazette, columnist Jason Mackey. You can also hear Jason all over the station and hosting shows in the evening time. Jason, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you guys. What's going on?
Jason, you're going to get mad at me for saying this, but I was watching you on the video stream the other night on my giant TV in my living room. Congratulations to me on all my success. And you really like to bite those nails, Jason. Just a scouting report.
Boy.
Content of the show, really good. I was riveted. I watched for about 2 hours as I was doing some of my own stuff. But, yeah, those fingernails, man, they're not safe.
It's okay, Jason.
I
have the same problem.
Dude, and you know what the problem is? The video stream, there are some shows where I just forget it's on. And I was going to town on my nails the other night. I don't know why. I appreciate that, Adam. Constructive criticism. I'm hosting tonight. I will try to not chomp my fingers away. But, yeah, it's a nasty habit, Doran. We got to stop that.
Yeah, I'm never stopping.
Well, Doran does it farther away from the camera. Mackey was just right up in this thing. Yeah. It was again, the
Doran's smarter and more self-aware than I am.
Yeah, and I'll be watching tonight when I'm giving the baby the bottle, Jason. So if you start doing it, I'll text you. We'll beat that habit out of you. All right, buddy.
I like it.
In all seriousness, the Steelers' season went up in smoke again, as it has the last 5 other times that they've made the postseason in recent memory under Mike Tomlin. They're not going to move on from the head coach. We know that. But in your opinion, do you think that it's time?
Yeah, I do. I think it's not a mark against Mike Tomlin. I mean, I guess it is in this situation, but I think everything sort of runs its course. I don't know how you can look at this situation and not feel that way, guys. I mean, for whatever reason, and we can pick apart reasons, maybe the defense, the offense not having enough. It looked like a team in the first half in Baltimore, and again, I was there, that just didn't want to be there. That just didn't, that was beaten, that didn't have any solutions. And I think there's talent in that locker room. There's not enough of it, but it's not coming together for any sort of common good, which to me is job description number 1 for a head coach. And I think it's time. I'm baffled that decision came out that quickly, seems to be made that quickly. They're not going to entertain anything. I don't know how you take Art Rooney seriously when he meets with the media and says, I want to see this. He said, I want to see playoff wins. It's time, which he was right. They didn't do that, and there are going to be minimal repercussions. I don't understand.
It's one thing to narrow in on the game, and I totally agree with you. It looked like that they were disinterested of being there. As soon as Derrick Henry got the ball a couple times, they were like, all right, like, we're done. Like, we don't want to do this anymore. They look like they just didn't even want to be there. But let's narrow in on the last 5 games, the last 5 losses, the losing streak. What's the main thing you think that went wrong during that losing streak?
Oh, boy.
Let's throw out the 3 games in 11 days, the excuse making of that. Let's throw that out.
Yeah, I don't like that, Doran. I mean, 10 other teams did that,
right.
I believe, or they were one of 10. Like, I don't think the NFL in general should have any teams playing 3 games in 10 days, 11 days. I think that's stupid and haphazard, but I mean, other teams had to do it. But yeah, I'm trying to think of one thing that sort of the thread sewn through all of them. It sounds weird, but maybe I'd say defense. I just think that, and I wrote about this yesterday, they're paying so much for that unit. You would want it to be a difference maker. I don't think that's an exorbitant ask to say the highest paid unit in the NFL should be your strength, should be your identity. And that waned in those games. They didn't get enough pressure on the quarterback. I mean, look at what they did against Baltimore, what they did against Kansas City. They barely touched Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. They weren't able to stop the run in key moments. They did not force turnovers, which they thought was a big part of their identity through 13 games. So, I mean, that's not to excuse not having a number 2 wide receiver. That's not to excuse the poor pass protection. That's not to excuse games that I don't think Russell Wilson played particularly well. But if you want to look for big, giant reasons to explain it, I'm going defense.
I would not disagree with that. I'm also spending every single dollar and cent this offseason and maybe most of my draft capital on offense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got an all-pro player on your defensive line. You've got an all-pro player who rushes the passer and another really good one in Alex Highsmith. You've got a good inside backer in Patrick Queen, and you've got an up-and-comer, though I think he stagnated a little bit this year, in Joey Porter Jr. That should be enough when your head coach is supposed to be this defensive guru. In an offensive league, spend money on offense. Agree?
Well, Adam, this is why I think it's time. I mean, look at what the Steelers are doing, how they're trying to win, how they're spending money, juxtaposed to the rest of the NFL, the teams you see in the playoffs right now. What's the common thread with those teams? They have younger, mobile, bigger quarterbacks. They have offensive weapons, their game plans, what their scheme on offense looks nothing like what the Steelers are trying to do. They have wide receivers, young, fast wide receivers. They're willing to take those risks. The Steelers, they're an anomaly. They're trying to win a way that nobody else is trying to win, and it's not working. And you have a guy who's like dug his heels in on this way of doing things, and it doesn't make sense. The only thing I would disagree with you with, Adam, as far as how they're spending money, they need help at corner. I'm sorry. If Joey Porter Jr. is your best option, I think you're in a tough place. I don't understand. Like Dante Jackson, Corey Trice Jr., James Pierre, Cam Sutton, any combination of those leads me to believe that they need to add some depth there too, whether it's through the draft or free agency.
You saw the free agent market for quarterbacks, and you saw one of the bigger names that would be a free agent that people would be enticed to pay last night, which he lost a lot of money last night. He lost a lot of money last week. That's Sam Darnold.
Yep.
Percentage chance that Russell Wilson is back next year. Percentage chance that Justin Fields is back next year with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I mean, Doran, based on what I was down there yesterday, and based on Russell Wilson, what he said, his body language, how he interacted with us, 95%. I don't know. I think it's very high. I do. And I think that was the plan all along. And based on Russell's comments, I don't know if I see the Steelers moving off of them. They're going to keep Arthur Smith. They're going to keep Mike Tomlin. And I think they're going to run it back with Russell Wilson. And that's sort of astonishing to me. But, if we're assessing what they're doing versus what they should be doing. Now, that's not the direction I would go. I wrote today I would pivot to Justin Fields. I think it's a different option. And that would do a couple things, guys. I mean, one, it would save you a little bit of money, and you could pour it into other offensive weapons, and you could kind of design your offense differently. Two, I think it's going to tell you whether you stink or whether you're any good. Because either Justin Fields is going to figure it out and look like his draft pedigree, and that would be an awesome outcome for the Steelers, or he's not going to be very good. The Steelers aren't going to be very good, and they're going to wind up with a top 10 pick. I wouldn't hate that outcome either. So I'd go with Fields next year, but I don't think that's the way they're going.
I am with you 100%. But now looking at it through their eyes, their perspective, and you just said you think it's a 95% chance that Russ comes back. Do you think that with another really good wide receiver opposite George Pickens, with maybe a more dynamic running back to pair with Jaylen Warren, do you think they could be a 12-win team next year with Russ? Do you think that he's got enough in the tank to win a playoff game if surrounded by more talent?
Yeah, I mean, if surrounded by more talent, sure. And being a 12-win team and being where this team should be, I'm not sure are the same thing. And I know that's a weird line,
you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them. They could have been a 12-win team this year if some things maybe fell differently, if they won some games they shouldn't have won. But are they an actual threat to knock off the Bills or the Chiefs or the Ravens? And I would say no to that, which, again, sounds like a weird thing to say for a 12-win team. But, yeah, so I think they can get back there, Adam. I do. I think they need to spend significant money or draft capital, maybe both. I think you said this earlier on wide receiver. Maybe two guys. I mean, I like Calvin Austin, but I like him as a 3. I'm not sure they have a 4 in that scenario. I mean, they don't have nearly enough depth. If you get the right running back, somebody who actually fits this offense, yeah, I think you can help and support Russ. I think you need to adjust some things in the game plan. Use the middle of the field more, use your tight ends more, that sort of thing. I think they have some decisions to make on defense, but yeah, I think they can get to the point of being a 12-win team. I just don't know if they can get to a point of being a 12-win team who's an actual threat in the AFC.
Art II is probably going to talk at the end of the month, probably in a couple of weeks here, and he's going to talk to the media. And we might as well just copy and paste what he said last year and insert it this year because it's going to be the same thing. We need urgency. We need to make some changes. Things need to be different. We hold ourselves to a higher standard. We need to be better. You know what he's going to say. But last year he did say that, and they did make some changes, right? They fired the offensive coordinator, hired Arthur Smith, got a new receivers coach. They made some in-house changes. Whenever he does say that again, that we know he's going to say it, what changes is he going to talk about this year? And is he going to talk about possibly changes within the organization in Mike Tomlin's power? because we asked that question last year, and it seemed like that he was maybe going to head in that direction, but didn't. Should he talk about, or should that question be asked of Mike Tomlin's power changing, his power structure changing within the organization?
I think you're hitting on something really important, Doran, and I think that's the one significant thing they can change. I do, and I think we're both talking about the same thing, right? Defensive coordinator. I like Terrell Austin, but I worry that this is going to cost him his job because people pay for this sort of thing with their job all the time and the way they were outclassed against the Ravens. But it's not just Terrell Austin. Like if they move on from him as defensive coordinator, which I would understand. I don't have any problem with them doing it. I think they're going to have to make a change. What they need to do is create a different power structure. Mike Tomlin doesn't need to be meddling in the defense. You need to hire a bright defensive mind and let him do the job. Sink or swim. Mike Tomlin has enough to worry about being the CEO of this thing, being the head coach. Like, yeah, if you want to make fundamental changes to how the Steelers operate, bring in a clock management guy. Bring in an end of quarter, end of half guy.
I'll do it for $80K.
What is it?
I'll do it for $80K. Yeah.
Like I said, bring in Crowley. Do it. Let him name his price. But no, seriously. Why do you not operate like that? Bring in a defensive coordinator, trust the man to do his job. Bring in a clock management guy because that's clearly a blind spot for Mike Tomlin. Take advantage of what Mike Tomlin's strengths are. Allow him to keep the group together. Allow him to motivate. Allow him to create a consistent message. I think there are things that Mike Tomlin does well. I just don't understand why he's, down in the weeds with the defense. Let the defensive coordinator do that.
If your editor said, "Hey, Jason, we like a lot of elements of your writing, but we're going to tell you what to write about," they might as well just fire you. Like if Craig Riley walked in here and said, "Hey, Crowley, there's some things we like you doing as a host, but we're going to tell you what topics to do," they might as well fire me. And so I understand what we're doing here. If you're going to keep Mike Tomlin around, yeah, there should be a change in the philosophy and a change in the power structure. No doubt about it. But if you're having those conversations as Art Rooney this second, you should just move on from the head coach. Jason, this was wonderful. As always, we'll be watching tonight. Maybe wear gloves.
I should. I do have bitter stuff that I put on my nails, but sometimes I don't put it on, and sometimes I just bite right through it.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Really?
It's almost like nail polish. Yeah.
So one more thing
Apparently
on the whole.
It's not strong enough, though.
Yeah, Jason, I'm sorry to keep hammering you on this. I don't think that bite nails is gross. I really don't. Like I saw Jason putting them in the trash can. That's how closely I was watching you too, by the way, buddy.
What are you doing at home?
It's weird. It's very weird.
I'm just looking out.
I'm very odd.
Just looking out.
Forget a hobby, Crowley.
See you, Jason.
All right, guys, later.